Welcome back. We are in Orlando, Florida for the 17th National Ethanol Conference, and we always like to talk with John Urbanchuk and get some numbers, the economic impact of the ethanol industry. John is the Technical Director for Environmental Economics for Cardno Entrix. That is a global environmental and natural resources consulting company. John, good to talk with you again, and you have a lot of numbers. I started off the show saying I really wanted to emphasize the positive economic benefit, the positive economic impact the ethanol industry is having. You know, in the energy debate and the energy discussion, there always seems to be a lot of talk about, well, this is what we could do, or here's something we might work on in the future. And I think a lot of times we overlook the fact, here's what ethanol is doing right now. Not maybe, not sometime down the line, but is doing right now. And the numbers are really starting to add up. I mean, early on I remember people saying, well, ethanol, that's fine, but you're really not going to be able to make a difference. You're not going to be able to move the needle that much. Well, I'd say when we look at these numbers that you have, ethanol, the industry is moving the needle in a positive way.
Oh, Mike, I think you're absolutely right. This industry has grown significantly. Last year we produced almost 14 billion gallons of ethanol. That's up significantly from just 5 years ago. And when you take a look at the economic contribution of this industry, it is all those dollars that are spent. I mean, the industry spent over $40 billion on raw materials, goods, and services to produce that 14 billion gallons of ethanol last year. And as we've spoken before, every one of those dollars circulates throughout the entire economy, creates final demand, generates income, and supports jobs. And although ethanol is not a labor-intensive industry, it is a manufacturing sector industry, and that's really important because of all the focus that's being placed on revitalizing and bringing back the manufacturing sector. We have a manufacturing sector industry, ethanol, that's already here and is growing and is supporting jobs and income. When you look at the entire impact of this industry, it supported more than 400,000 jobs throughout the whole economy last year. Now, granted, the largest share of those were in services, all the industries that support ethanol. Another 22% were agriculture, 15% in trade, wholesale and retail trade, and in manufacturing about 6.5%. So you're looking at an industry that is vibrant, it's growing, and the other part of this that people overlook is that it provides a very, very important economic impetus for rural America, because that's where most of these plants are located. They are making a product out of raw materials that are grown by American farmers in America using American inputs, and all that money really has a positive impact on the rural economy.
Detractors, critics of the industry, you know, they act like we ought to just pull the plug and let this industry go away. What these numbers show is, look what it would do, the hole that it would leave, the damage it would do to the economy if you pulled the plug on this industry.
Well, that's absolutely right. If this industry weren't here, one, we wouldn't be spending that money on these goods and services, okay? Clearly the support for agriculture would be a lot less, and the impact on the rural economy would be a lot less. But moreover, we're also producing a product that's displacing the equivalent of about 325 million barrels of oil. That's money that you know, what the average price of oil, I don't know what it is today, but it's been going up. I know last year the average price was about $116 a barrel. Do the math. 325 million barrels, that's a lot of money. We're still spending it, but that money's being spent here. It's not going abroad.
Yeah, I remember early on when the industry was just starting to grow, people would say, fine, but you're really never going to make that much of a dent. I mean, are you really going to change how much we buy from other countries? Well, we're seeing we have made a dent. We have made a change in that.
Well, what's really interesting is that when you take a look at the oil industry itself, and let's be honest, let's take a look at what the Saudi kings have said and the princes have said over the past year or so. And that is one of the things that they're most concerned about is increasing competition from non-petroleum sources of energy, namely biofuels. We're at the point now where it's starting to be noticed, it's starting to have an impact. It's contributing to our energy security, to our national security. It's helping our balance of payments. It's helping support rural economies, and it's a real winner.
We're talking with John Urbanchuk. He's Technical Director, Environmental Economics for Cardno Entrix. One area, John, that obviously, admittedly, that still needs to is lagging behind, and that is our development of the cellulosic ethanol industry. The promise is still there. We're seeing some improvement. It's taking longer than maybe we would have liked, but what do you see as the future impact? Where can we go with that segment of the industry?
Well, you know, we have a circumstance. We're under the renewable fuel standard. We're capped at 15 billion gallons on ethanol from cornstarch, which means that the additional 21 billions has got to come from other sources, and cellulosic ethanol is really a key component of that. We've done an awful lot of research. There's an awful lot of research and development effort going into developing that, and we're starting to see the fruits of that come to fore. It's going to develop. It's developing more slowly than we expected, but nonetheless it is. And I think the long-term outlook for ethanol and other biofuels from advanced biofuel feedstocks, including cellulose, is really, really quite bright. Things get done at the pilot plant level, but until you really start to see the commercialization take place, and that's happening now, then I think we'll see a real significant growth in that sector of the industry.
Did the downturn in the economy slow down that advancement?
A little bit. I'll tell you that there are two things really I think that impacted that industry. One, obviously, were the problems in the financial sector, and that hasn't been sorted out yet. It's difficult for anybody to borrow money these days, and that's affected, I think, the development of the cellulosic industry. That's beyond their control, and that's going to improve, I think, as well. And of course, the slowdown in the economy has also slowed down the demand for gasoline, and that's something we have to be concerned about as well, because ethanol is sold as part of gasoline.
Which is a challenge now as we're looking at rising oil prices and higher prices at the pump. That, though, gets back to a story for ethanol, in that ethanol helps hold down those prices.
Yes, it absolutely does. Ethanol does help restrain the growth in gasoline prices, and that's very, very positive from the consumer's perspective.
I think maybe that's where we haven't connected with a lot of consumers enough yet. How does it directly impact them? And when we look at gas prices, that's something that people can relate to. Jobs, certainly another area that they can relate to. Now, the whole food and fuel thing, we've talked about it. There's still a perception among some, that it's somehow hurting our food supply, our ability to feed ourselves, and obviously we have the numbers showing that's not the case.
Well, that's true. I think all of the critics that have alleged quite loudly that the reason for rising food prices is because we're using corn to make ethanol have been shown not to be true. There are a lot of factors behind the increase in food prices, not the least of which is the rising price of energy. But moreover, that argument is going to go away as we reach that 15 billion gallon cap on cornstarch ethanol, because future growth after that point is going to come from feedstocks that really don't directly impact any food supply issues at all. So I think as we move forward, that argument is going to be much less viable.
We're close now, it would seem, to going to E15. What kind of impact will that have?
Well, again, that's going to have a very, very positive impact for consumers, because the use of ethanol, which is less expensive than gasoline, as I'm sure Bob has pointed out to you, that's going to have a positive impact in keeping gasoline prices lower than they would otherwise be. But the other part of that is that it's also going to help stimulate growth in this particular industry. It's going to also displace more oil that's coming from foreign sources.
As we look at the industry, there's been a lot of new technology applied now. The ethanol plants of today have certainly changed from 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Well, they sure are, and Bob started out this morning by saying this is not your grandfather's ethanol industry. It really isn't. We've seen tremendous improvements in energy efficiency and the efficiency of using water. We've seen increases in yields, so that this industry really has matured and is, I think, poised to make much more significant advancements as we move forward into the future.
And you look at an ethanol plant, it's really a biorefinery, and we know how hard it is to get refineries built in this country, but we have them with the biofuels industry, and they are multi-purpose facilities.
They are in fact biorefineries, so that you're seeing facilities that don't just make ethanol, but produce corn oil, that produce distillers' grains, and have the potential to produce a number of other products as well. And as we move into some of the other feedstocks, you will see additional co-products come out of those industries as well that will add value not only to the producer of the feedstock, but through the value chain itself.
Bob and I were talking, when you look at people here at this meeting, they realize this isn't the best of times as far as making money in the ethanol industry. I mean, right now, a lot of them aren't. But they realize that they're in this for the long haul. They're committed to staying with it, and there are going to be ups and downs in that cycle.
Well, there have in fact been ups and downs, and when you take a look at profitability in industry, actually 2011 was quite a good year. We had the highest level of industry profitability since 2007. Today, we've seen a decline in profitability, but that's not going to stay with us. It's a cyclical industry, and we'll see those margins improve again.
At the end of last year, we lost the tax incentive. We lost VTEC for the industry. The feeling here seems to be, hey, we're going to move on. We can survive without that.
That's absolutely right. And again, it goes back to a lot of the efficiencies that we talked about before. The industry has matured. It's able to stand on its own 2 feet, and we're going to see that happen.
But the incentives are important for the development of that cellulosic industry.
They are indeed, because when you're taking a look at the infancy of that particular sector, those incentives are very, very important. As a consequence, the cellulosic tax incentive, which extends through 2013, is very, very important.
It seems like we're at no shortage of materials that can be used to make ethanol. It's just, can we make them commercially viable?
Well, can we make them profitably? And that's what it comes down to. And again, that's a combination of applying technology and economics of scale.
And we've been pointing us out for a number of years. The corn ethanol industry is the bridge to get to those next generation technologies that will allow us to use other products other than corn.
Oh, absolutely. It is the bridge on which those, or the foundation, I should say, on which those new technologies are being built. Because we're taking what we've learned from converting corn, or in the case of sugar and other feedstocks, and using that to build and expand the industry, and we'll see those advancements take place.
So we've talked about a lot of different areas here. I mean, I'm looking at these numbers. When you see the ethanol industry added $43 billion to the gross domestic product, and pumped $30 billion into the budgets of hundreds of thousands of American households, and that doesn't count the money that we save families by reducing the cost of gasoline. That's a story that the industry has to tell. That's a very positive.
It's a very, very positive story, particularly in this economic environment.
One that doesn't get told nearly enough or emphasized enough. John, always good to talk with you. Thank you very much.
Mike, thank you very much.
That is John Urbanchuk. He is the Technical Director, Environmental Economics for Cardno Entrix. That's a global environmental natural resources consulting company. All right. We're going to take a look at ethanol on the global picture when we come back after our final break. Bliss Baker is going to join us, Executive Director for the Global Renewable Fuels Alliance. Some more very interesting numbers. We're trying to, really paint the picture here and get some things out that get overlooked a lot of times when we talk about ethanol, and that is the impact that it's having not only in the United States but around the world, and really starting to make a difference. And we're going to get some of those numbers when we come back. Stay with us in Orlando at the National Ethanol Conference. This is AgriTalk.